In the accounts of the four canonical Gospels, Jesus' triumphal entry into Jerusalem takes place in the days before the Last Supper, marking the beginning of his passion. Crowds gather around Jesus and believe in him in John chapter 12 verses 9 to 11 after he raised Lazarus from the dead. And the next day the multitudes that had gathered for the feast in Jerusalem welcome Jesus as he enters Jerusalem. In Matthew chapter 21 verses 1 to 11, Mark chapter 11 verses 1 to 11, Luke chapter 19 verses 28 to 44, and John chapter 12 verses 12 to 19, Jesus descends from the Mount of Olives towards Jerusalem, and the crowds lay their clothes on the ground to welcome him as he triumphantly enters Jerusalem. Christians celebrate Jesus' entry into Jerusalem as Palm Sunday, a week before Easter Sunday. Gospel accounts. According to the Gospels, Jesus was staying at Bethany and Bethphage before entering Jerusalem, and John chapter 12 verse 1 states that he was in Bethany 6 days before Passover. In the Synoptic Gospels, Jesus sends two disciples ahead to the village over against them in order to retrieve a donkey that had been tied up but never ridden, and to say, if questioned, that the donkey was needed by the Lord but would be returned. Jesus then rode the donkey into Jerusalem, with the three Synoptic Gospels stating that the disciples had first put their cloaks on it to make it more comfortable. In Luke chapter 19 verse 41, as Jesus approaches Jerusalem, he looks at the city and weeps over it, foretelling the suffering that awaits the city. The Gospels go on to recount how Jesus rode into Jerusalem, and how the people there laid down their cloaks in front of him and also laid down small branches of trees. The people sang part of Psalm chapter 118 verses 25 to 26, "Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. We bless you from the house of the Lord." In the Synoptic Gospels, this episode is followed by the cleansing of the temple episode, and, in all four Gospels, Jesus performs various healings and teaches by way of parables while in Jerusalem until the Last Supper. Traditionally, entering the city on a donkey symbolizes arrival in peace, rather than as a war-waging king arriving on a horse. Old Testament parallels. Matthew chapter 21 verses 1 to 11 refers to a passage from Book of Zechariah and states, "All this was done, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken by the prophet, saying, Tell ye the daughter of Zion, Behold, thy king cometh unto thee, meek, and sitting upon an ass, and a colt the foal of an ass." The location of the Mount of Olives is significant in the Old Testament in that Zechariah chapter 9 verse 9 in Zechariah chapter 14 verses 1 to 5 stated that the Messiah would come to Jerusalem from the Mount of Olives. Then shall the Lord go forth and fight against those nations, as when he fought in the day of battle. And his feet shall stand in that day upon the Mount of Olives, which is before Jerusalem on the east. The triumphal entry and the palm branches resemble the celebration of Jewish liberation in 1 Maccabees, which states, "And entered into it, with thanksgiving, and branches of palm trees, and with harps, and cymbals, and with viols, and hymns, and songs." Jesus' entry on a donkey has a parallel in Zechariah chapter 9 verse 9, which states that, "Thy king cometh unto thee, he is just, and having salvation, lowly, and riding upon an ass." The symbolism of the donkey may also refer to the Eastern tradition that it is an animal of peace, versus the horse, which is an animal of war. Therefore, a king came riding upon a horse when he was bent on war, and rode upon a donkey when he wanted to point out that he was coming in peace. Therefore, Jesus' entry to Jerusalem symbolized his entry as the Prince of Peace, not as a warmongering king.